Excel, thank you for joining me. This will be a very um, disturbing live stream today pertaining to Ruby, Frankie, and Jodi Hildebrand. I will be showing you news footage of the arrest of both parties and what was found inside of the home, the state of the children, the rooms that they were in, um, their physical condition, and I'm going to read you some information from ABC. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ BigAngie129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Please feel free to go to my community board for said updates and polls, and I will post polls throughout the live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to start off reading you some information before I get into the videos. ABC6 is the source. New video of Ruby Frankie's son reveals details that led to arrest. Mommy vlogger Ruby Frankie holds a camera with one hand and places her other hand around her son. He grins ear to ear as she announces the multi-day celebration that she has planned for his 10th birthday. In the video posted to her popular 8 Passengers YouTube channel in 2021, Frankie says, we're just going to be celebrating his birthday all week. On August 30th, 2023, a little more than 2 years after the video was posted, Frankie's son arrives on the doorstep of a house in the picturesque Red Rock Valley of Ivins, Utah. He is 250 miles away from his family home in Springville, Utah. In newly released Ring camera footage, first obtained by ABC News, the boy's appearance is in stark contrast to that shown in the vlog. He is markedly thinner, without shoes, and is described by first responders as stoic. That camera video is just one piece of evidence that was released by the Washington County Attorney's Office today. This comes 30 days after Frankie and her former friend, therapist, and business partner, Jodi Hildebrand, were each sentenced to up to 30 years in prison. They had previously pleaded guilty to 4 felony counts of second-degree aggravated child abuse in December 2023. The victims are Frankie's 2 youngest children, who ABC News is referring to by their initials, R, the 12-year-old boy who first escaped from Hildebrand's sprawling 10,000 square foot home in August, and E, a 9-year-old girl who was found in the same home later that day. There was no evidence found in this investigation that the 2 oldest children, Sherry, 21, and Chad, 19, or the middle 2 teenage daughters, were physically abused. Very interesting. Sherry and Chad had already moved out of the family home while the middle teens were still living in Springville at the family home. Still, even in 2020, some of the viewers of the 8 Passengers channel expressed concern for the Frankie children's well-being, most of the criticism targeting the parenting style that Ruby presented online. A Change.org petition from May 2020 called for the Utah Division of Child and Family Services to check on the children's well-being. It cited punishments that Ruby spoke about in her videos, including taking away bedroom privileges for her eldest son, Chad, and forcing him to sleep on a beanbag chair for months after he pulled a prank on a sibling. That petition garnered more than 18,000 signatures. But authorities would later discover that Ruby Frankie's and Hildebrand's actions in the summer of 2023 went far beyond the bounds of strict parenting. The newly released evidence includes never-before-seen body camera footage, interrogation tapes, crime scene photos, and jail calls. It paints a picture of, as Washington County Attorney Eric Clark described it, horrific abuse perpetrated by both Hildebrand and Ruby Frankie. Clark said that the abuse resulted to physical long-term effects for R and was what one prosecutor called one of the most severe emotional abuse cases he had ever worked on. This evidence explains how Hildebrand entered the lives of the Frankie family and details the abuse. Frankie chronicles her and Hildebrand's actions in a journal. a collection of unlined pages covered in neat handwriting. It's a manicured day-by-day account detailing how the women isolated E and R from the outside world, stripped them of food, water, and shelter, and physically and emotionally abused them. Frankie describes in her journal a 2023 birthday for R that was very different than the one in her sunny vlog from 2021. In July of 2023, Frankie writes, "It's R's birthday and he doesn't even know what month it is." She continues on a later page. "I told R that he needs God. I invited him to fast and pray." Deputy Washington County Attorney Zachary Whelan told 2020 that on R's birthday, the boy woke up and was immediately made to stand on the back patio. Now, mind you, this is Ivins, Utah, Whelan said. It was extremely hot and he stood on that back porch all day. R's birthday came about 2 months after Frankie brought R and E to HILDEBRANDT'S home. Interesting. In May of that year. Washington County attorneys believe that this was when the abuse began. In an all-new 2020 airing March 22nd and streaming the next day on Hulu, ABC News' Juju Chang tells the story of this prolonged emotional and physical abuse, providing the first in-depth coverage of this story since the news first broke. In Chang's report, first responders and prosecutors explained the evidence and shared their firsthand accounts from last summer and the months that followed. The consensus among them, R's is the hero of this story, and his and E's path to freedom began when he rang the neighbor's doorbell. But the neighbor's Ring camera video reveals R did not think he was about to be free. In fact, he expected to be taken to jail. When the elderly homeowner opens his door, R asks him for a favor. "Can you lead me to the nearest police station?" Investigators told 2020 they believe that R asked this not so he could receive help, but rather so he could complete the repentance process that his mother and Hildebrandt told him was required to absolve his sins. Okay? They told these kids that you have to repent first and then you're going to jail, Whelan said. Clark told Chang that both E and R were convinced that they had done atrocious acts. In her journal, Frankie describes the children as possessed and refers to the abuse that she and Hildebrandt inflicted on them as their chance at repentance. Investigators say that R attempted to escape the first time in July. Before leaving the property, though, Frankie writes in her journal that he took the time to spell out in small pebbles, "Jail. I will call when I get there." Forced to sleep outdoors, he left the message next to the spot where he had been sleeping on the concrete. Whelan said his actions shows that R was both convinced he needed to be locked up and that whatever he would experience in jail would be better than the conditions at Hildebrandt's home. Video shows the neighbor who met R after his second escape dialing 911 to get help as his wife steps in to bring R water and a snack. This is when he describes R's conditions for the first time. He has duct tape around each ankle. There's sores around them. His voice breaks with emotion as he continues. This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds. Body camera footage captures the moment EMTs arrive at the scene and make their initial assessment of R. That first look at him, Maddie Ikes, an EMT with Santa Clara Ivins Fire and Rescue, said, it just hit that there was something wrong. R is taken to the ambulance for treatment and body camera footage shows him on a gurney. He's wearing a blue button-down shirt that hangs off his body and a baggie of pretzels sits at his side. Evidence photos taken by the officers that day show the severe open wounds on R's wrists and ankles that were underneath the duct tape. Clark said the wounds had been dressed in a honey cayenne pepper mixture. Santa Clara Ivins police officer Simon Pigyafet said that upon requesting, R told him that his mom and Hildebrandt had bound his arms and feet to weights on the ground that restricted his movement. Officers later learned that R also had been handcuffed at his wrists and ankles before the duct tape had been applied. Wow. While R is being treated, he tells officers that two of his siblings are still in Hildebrandt's home. A group of officers, including Pete Yavid and Sergeant Nick Tobler, quickly drive down the block to Hildebrandt's home. Body camera footage captures the moment that Hildebrandt finally swings open her large wooden front door. She is dressed in shorts and a sweatshirt and holding a phone up to her ear. Her first words to police are, "I have my attorney on the phone." And don't you find that interesting? She already has the attorney on the phone. Hildebrandt's demeanor in that video is vastly different than her calm, polished online persona. She is the founder of the defunct online life coaching business, Connections. The company posted publicly accessible videos to social media and offered other resources like mental health workbooks behind a paywall. Hildebrandt and Frankie are seen together in dozens of Connections videos, most notably in a series called Moms of Truth with JODI and RUBI. In these videos, Hildebrandt and Frankie sit side by side on a couch discussing topics like parenting and offering self-help tips. The women continue posting content up until August 16, 2023. 2 weeks later, on the day of R's escape, Hildebrandt is physically removed from that home. Officers enter without a warrant, citing exigent circumstances based on the tip from R that his siblings were still inside the house. They quickly make their way through a maze of multiple bedrooms, bathrooms, and hallways. Minutes later, they discover a child with a buzz cut sitting cross-legged on the hardwood floor of an empty closet. We at first thought it might have been a little boy sitting there. Tobler and Juju Chain just staring up at us. Tobler told Juju Chain, "Thank you." 1 second, everybody. The child would not say who they were or how they ended up in Hildebrandt's closet. Hoping R could help identify the child, Tobler called his colleague, Detective Jessica Bate, who was still with R. "I began asking R, 'Hey, do you have a little brother?' Bate told Juju Chang. He said, 'No, I have a younger sister there.' That was when officers realized the child in the closet was R's sister, E, the spunky youngest Frankie child who was known by fans for speaking her mind in the 8 Passengers videos. But the child that is seen on body camera footage is quiet and reserved. Officers told ABC News that she seemed scared and was initially unwilling to leave her spot on the floor. Now, mind you, when you watch the footage, it is a closet off of the bathroom. Body camera footage shows first responders taking turns, each one trying to entice her to get up. Only these words from Tobler catch her attention. "I bet you like pizza." E nods her head. E is timid to eat at first, but eventually she eats an entire personal pizza and half of a large one. Wow. Finally, after 4 hours, she leaves the closet with the EMTs. And this is the part that got me, that they were trying to get this child to talk. And this went on for 4 hours to finally get her out of the closet. So these are some amazing people to have the patience, as they say, the patience of Job. Okay. The abuse that E had received, a lot of it was emotional, and it was very hard to even talk with E at first, Whelan told ABC News. While E is being taken to the hospital, Ruby Frankie finally arrives at the home. For hours, Hildebrandt and Frankie sit, waiting in separate rooms as officers finish their search. Detectives find handcuffs, ropes, and Frankie's journal in the home, but they do not find Frankie's other 2 minor children, who at this point are still unaccounted for. Police eventually located the 2 girls unharmed 4 hours from Ivins in American Fork, Utah. They're found with Pam Botster, the president of Connections. Botster has not been charged with any crimes connected to this case, and Springfield police say she fully cooperated with their investigation. While Hildebrandt and Frankie wait for officers to finish their search back in Ivins, officers told ABC News that neither woman asked about the safety of the children. Bate eventually determines her team has collected enough evidence. She places both Frankie and Hildebrandt under arrest, and they are driven to the police station. But hours earlier, someone else had arrived at that station asking about the children. That same day, we placed Ruby, Frankie, and Jodi under arrest. Kevin Frankie also came to the police department looking for his kids, Bates said. At that time, Frankie's estranged husband, Kevin, was considered a suspect. Striking interrogation footage captures the moment officers tell him about Art's condition, saying he was emaciated and skinny, scrawny. "I'm sorry, what?" Kevin Frankie asked, seemingly stunned. Investigators learned that Kevin Frankie had moved out of the family home and had not seen his children or seen his wife or children in over a year. He says that under Hildebrandt's guidance, Ruby Frankie had asked him to move out in July of 2022. Investigators quickly determined that Kevin Frankie was not a suspect in this case. He was off the hook pretty quickly because there just wasn't any evidence, Clark said. "We had a journal saying everything that had happened in the Hildebrandt home over the summer, and it never said he was in the home." Nearly 7 months later, Kevin Frankie is seeking to regain custody of his 4 minor children, and he's filed for divorce. 2020 has learned that R&E have been placed in foster care together, and Bate told Juju Chang that they are doing much better. Bate said they've put on weight, they look healthy, they're happy, they're back to their hobbies. ABC is the source, ABC 6. Wow, that's a lot to digest. I didn't have any idea that we were going to get information pertaining to the children, the evidence of what was done to the children, photographs of how the children looked inside Hildebrandt's home. But the one thing I noticed in the videos that have been released by Law and Crime and other local news stations is that the house was dark. And that's expected, you see, because darkness was in the peripheral of the children. So, hold on one second, everybody. It's expected that the house was dark, okay? Because the children were living a dark life with 2 dark beings. I think it's time now for people to accept that there was a lot more going on than just this woman giving mental help allegedly to Ruby and the husband, and Ruby stupidly asked her husband to leave. He stupidly left. To me, he's just as guilty, because it makes no sense to just show up and act like you care about your kids when you left your house under the guise from this woman, Hildebrandt. And that never made any sense to me. The fact that Jodi and Ruby were glued, evenly yoked, because you gotta use common sense. Had the little boy never escaped, we'd probably be talking about something else. We might be talking about children who were unalive. And I got a feeling it would have taken a while before you found them. It would, to me, would be a repeat of the Vallow case and Daybell case. And that's what this mirrors to me. Same whack ideology, same spewing of crazy nonsense and evil children and possessed children and zombified, ideology of the kids. Don't you find that interesting that you have people who don't even know each other, but yet they mirror the Vallow Daybell case because they believe in the same religion? And I'm not saying that the people who listen to this religion or watch this religion or practice this faith are the same caliber, have the same mindset, but there's something with that religion and something needs to be looked into it, because this is just too barbaric. Now, naturally, we have people who abuse children and do similar atrocious acts to children, and they probably don't believe in God. They probably claim they're Christian, but there's something with that religion. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think it's also time for people to acknowledge that these two possibly had a sexual relationship, because you can't logically explain meeting somebody, getting involved in their company. Of course, Ruby claims she wasn't in business with her, because that's how she's labeled in the media, her business partner. But however you word it, there's more to it than business, doing videos. Because why would a woman, one, kick her husband out, then go continue to stay down in this woman's house hours away with her two minor children? Two older ones are on their own. The other two are staying with the Connections president or CEO or whoever she is. That's odd. I'm wondering what rules she used to ask her to keep the kids, the middle kids, while she's got her two children all the way at the bottom of another state with this woman, and they're abusing the children. Don't you see there's something terribly, terribly wrong here? There was more to it than just business, making videos for parents. There was something wrong with JODI. And what are the odds she would meet RUBI and she's just as jacked up? Because there are allegations against JODI mistreating her own family members who she took in and took care of minor children. And they allege abuse from her. Now, 6 degrees rather, separation. How do these people cross paths, link up, two females, to abuse RUBI's children? I believe they were having a sexual relationship. I do. Because when you see cases of people who abuse children, when it's more than one, such as a partnership, it's usually a male and a female. Now, the case of the little boy in the suitcase, I believe his mother was dating that woman, who also has been arrested, charged, and she's now in prison for the crime of neglect of that little boy that was found in the suitcase in Indiana. And the mother was just arrested last week in California. I believe those two women were dating. You hear the same barrage of ideology. Something was wrong with the child. The child was possessed. That was a black couple. Now, here we have RUBI, a white woman, JODI, a white woman. Put it together. Why is a woman connecting with another woman to go stay in her house with her minor children in this woman's house, leave her other children elsewhere, and they have these two children tied up and abused, starving them? Make it make sense. You rarely hear that. You rarely hear a woman getting another woman to jump on board with her to abuse her children. Rarely. I rarely hear it. As I said, the only case I've heard of is this case recently of the woman who was arrested. She was on the run, and they found her in California, and they arrested her because she abused her child, and he was found in a suitcase in rural Indiana. And her female partner is currently in prison for aiding her. And what you see on their Facebook posts, it's the same nonsense. Talking about the child, talking about the demon wanted to smoke a cigarette. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous that these people are all similar out here abusing children. They are possessed. Well, let's keep it real. A child could be hard to deal with. Okay? A child could be hard to deal with. A child could have emotional problems, combative problems. Could be acting out, cursing, talking crazy, running away. But you don't bind them up. You don't starve them. You don't throw water on them. You don't shave their hair. They shave the girl's head. That's pure hatred, to shave a girl's head. And Summer Wells comes to mind. Now, some might say that child head was shaved because perhaps she had cooties or lice. I still feel like there are ways to take care of a child, okay? There's ways of taking care of a child. If a child has cooties or lice, you go to the pharmacy and you get medicine for the child. You don't shave all their hair off. I feel like that was self-hatred. The mother doesn't like herself. She doesn't like her kids. She shaves her baby girl's hair. Same thing with RUBI FRANKE. She's shaving this girl's head. What reason did she have to shave her head? Why are you shaving the hair off a girl? And when you watch the content of this girl child sitting in his closet. It took them 4 hours to get her out of there. It was just bizarre to me. Not moving, not talking, nothing until the officer mentions pizza. And naturally, she was hungry because she hasn't been eating. And I have told people before, this was going to be a worst case scenario had that little boy not ran out. Common sense will tell you, if you're not feeding the body with food, water, it is not going to hang on. Eventually, the organs will fail. And I believe they would have covered up the deaths of these 2 children, because she had already cut off her family, Ruby, and I don't believe Jodi kept in contact with her family. So you got 2 misfits, 2 oddballs, claiming these children are possessed, evil, torturing them, and neither one of them are dealing with their family. Neither one of them are dating men, having relationships with men. Stay woke, although Ruby's married to a man. He's out here somewhere doing his thing like a fool. You don't see the connection that there was something going on between Ruby and Jodi? I do believe there was a sexual relationship. I do. Because you can't make me understand how you could talk another woman into abusing your damn kids. And people saw the signs when she had the YouTube podcast. Drew up a petition, state went out, didn't find anything wrong. And you see this all the time. Every blue moon, somebody will say something about abuse pertaining to a child. The state gets involved, and voila, they don't see anything. You know why they didn't see anything? Because they saw this fancy house, pretty house, educated parents, nice-looking parents, probably nice furniture in the house, clean rooms. Oh, we don't see anything here. But the signs were there all along. A kid plays a prank on his sibling. Now he's sleeping in a common room for almost a year. Why would you put a half-grown child in an open space dining room to eat, sleep, change their clothes? That is abuse. And you'll hear them mention that in the interrogation. Oh, you can't raise your kids anymore. Oh, it's abuse now just because you let your kids sleep on the floor. See, they were telling on themselves then. Jodi, because she was the one doing all the talking. And you're going to see also Ruby defending her in the beginning, but then at some point, months later, jailhouse calls, she turns on her once she hears Jodi has decided to surrender. What else was she supposed to do, Ruby? Both of you are guilty of abusing the children. You thought she was going to go to court and have a trial, a jury trial? Who would be stupid enough, knowing there was evidence of abuse, knowing the children would then have to testify, which would be cruel to the children? She knew better. And the sick part of this story, besides the abuse, besides you have 2 people in cahoots doing it, besides having a whole father who's just oblivious, not even checking in to check on his own damn kids, Jodi is a mental health professional, went to school and studied the human mind, behavior. And this is what she would do to children. But she had already done it before, you see, because she had done it to her own niece and nephew. Let's see what evidence was brought about to convict both of these 2 of felony abuse against the 2 Franke children. Okay? Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope you all are well. There's no excuse for a man not to see his own children. So if you're coming in here with that nonsense, I don't want to hear it. There's no excuse for you not to see your own children. You live in the same area. You were living in the house. So for him to leave the house, that was his choice to leave. He did not have to leave that house. Nobody put a gun to his head and told him to leave the house. And there's no excuse for you to leave the house and go a whole year not talking to your kids. You left the house, so you went along with the program. There's no excuse for that. And I'm not getting ready to sit here and go round and round with anybody about that. That was his choice. That was his choice.
Just how emaciated these children were and the depths of the abuse, child abuse. The first video we're going to show you is from a neighbor's doorbell camera.
Hi, how is this? Wondering if you could do 2 fingers.
Well, what are they?
August 30th of last year, one of the children living in the Franke Hildebrand home in Ivans walks to a neighbor to ask for help.
What's going on?
The neighbors realize something is the matter.
We need to police here now.
As EMTs treat the boy, officers go to the Franke Hildebrand house. Here's police pulling Hildebrand out of the doorway so they can begin a search.
You come on, I'm a police officer.
In one clip, an officer brings a child a box of pizza and a drink. 2 minutes pass before the child opens the lid and begins eating. Law enforcement also provided these photos showing scarring and duct tape around a child's ankles and feet. Documents note bandages and wounds. Police blurred the children's faces and redacted much of what they said to officers. When this officer asked the child who tied ropes on him, we don't hear the answer, but we do hear the officer's follow-up question.
What's the help you want?
We're just here to talk to you about some of the few things involving your kids.
Franke and Hildebrand were near silent when detectives questioned them.
I'll wait till I have a lawyer. So I trust my attorney. He said, don't say anything.
Officers arrest the women later that night.
Right, you're gonna have to stand up, all right? It's gonna be 2 counts, second-degree felony and child abuse or neglect, okay?
Law enforcement also provided a journal
No words.
from Franke that discusses the abuse and neglect, including whipping a child with a belt. There's also religious references. You can learn more about those journals at 13now.com. Both Franke and Hildebrand are serving 4 prison terms, each carrying 1 to 15 years in prison. We expect to learn any day whether the Board of Pardons and Parole might first consider them for parole.
Well, I hope they're not considered for parole. They haven't even been in jail long enough. How can you consider somebody for parole? They haven't even done a year in jail. 1 to 15 per count. They haven't even gone to jail. Haven't sat in prison long enough to consider parole. As you see, the officer is telling her what her counts are and why she's being arrested, and she's just standing there not talking. That was her demeanor, Miss Ruby Franke, the entire time. Now, Jodi didn't mind chitter-chattering with law enforcement, playing dumb, playing stupid in the beginning, outside her house, and then inside of the police station. But Ruby was numb from the get-go. And when you look at this picture here, KUTV, that's your real Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrand. What you heard in court by Ruby reading a statement, apologizing and all of that, and trying to shift all the blame on Jodi is a bunch of bull. That photograph right there, her mugshot, that's the real Ruby Franke. No way you're gonna make me believe from August up until winter, you have a change of heart and you have repented and you feel bad about what you did to your kids. You feel bad that you got caught. So you feel bad for yourself. You don't feel bad for the children. You don't feel bad by separating your children. You don't feel bad about putting your husband out, and you don't feel bad about abusing those minor children. You didn't have a relationship with your family because you knew what you were doing and what you were about to do. And the evidence that you're going to hear as far as her trying to buy property with Jodi Hildebrand should tell you something. Why would 2 women be looking for a property and one's married? I'll just let that sit right there. There's more to this story than 2 women living in a house, a sprawling house in southern Utah and abusing kids. There was way more going on. I won't doubt they were sleeping in the same bed together. Because when you watch the demeanor of both, when the police show up, as you hear from the commentary I read by ABC, there is no concern for the children. There is no asking, how are the children doing? Jodi opens the door on the phone with the lawyer. So she already knew the little boy had ran away and knew what was about to happen. And that was her fear, being arrested. They talked to RUBI. She doesn't give two you-know-whats that they're there talking to her about her child and any allegations against her. That shows you she believed what she was doing was right, and she felt like she didn't owe nobody a damn explanation. That first information about the children's abuse is Fox 13 Utah. We're not going to go over to KUTV News Salt Lake City and get a recap of the evidence that has now been released of the police showing up to HILDEBRANDT'S home in Utah and the arrest of she and RUBI FRANKE and the abuse exacted against the two younger minor children. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the Vault XL. 1 second, everybody. Give you a view. All righty.
The case of RUBI FRANKE and JODI HILDEBRANdt. It's a 2 News investigation we've been following since the very beginning. We're dedicating the next 30 minutes to all things 8 passengers.
This newly released evidence today shows much of what happened when the women were arrested for child abuse. Now, we do want to warn you, this story could be hard for many to hear. We do have extensive team coverage for you this afternoon as we dive into the mountain of evidence released today in this case. Amanda Gilbert and Brian Schnee are digging deeper into this new video.
First, though, among all that was released today, we're hearing from RUBI and as they speak about the case. Jake Taylor joining us in studio after poring over this mountain of evidence since before 5 a.m. this morning. So, Jake, where is this audio coming from?
Yeah, as part of today's release, I've been able to listen through the phone calls RUBI FRANKE and JODI HILDEBRANdt made as they were in jail or prison. What is perhaps most impactful from these calls is what changes. Well, what Jodi says remains pretty consistent. How RUBI speaks of Jodi and about what she herself did dramatically changes. In the first conversations and calls after their arrests, RUBI and Jodi each proclaiming they've done nothing wrong.
I mean, I shouldn't be here. I haven't done anything wrong.
FRANKE defending herself and Jodi.
My own family misunderstands me. They misinterpret me. And poor Jodi, they misinterpret her. They misunderstand her. She puts her neck out on the line for people, and then they get mad at her. I mean,
While saying the children are possessed.
adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil.
And that their prosecution is persecution from the devil.
This is what it took. The devil's been after me for years. Nobody wants the truth. Nobody wants the truth. Nobody wants the truth because these kids. You know, I told Doug, I woke up, the spirit told, it's all the devil. I mean, you've seen him. I mean, I've known you, for 5 years? You've watched him come at me.
Jodi continues declaring nothing that she did was wrong.
So now it's abusive to make a on the floor. It's abusive, or it's abusive to, you know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Can't even raise your kids anymore.
Evidence and Jodi's own plea showing the abuse went far beyond forcing a child to sleep on the floor. As RUBI spends time in prison, the way she speaks of the case changes. No longer talking of her children being possessed, but saying she'd been tricked by Jodi.
Because I really believed it. But then when I heard that Jodi was not talking like that, she was denying the whole thing, it told me she knew all along.
While in Jodi's conversations, she quotes scripture.
The children shall rise up against their parents and shall cause them to be put to death. That statement right there is what's going on with faith.
After
What you find, what I find, I'll speak for myself, so ridiculous is that RUBI, I don't understand why she thought this woman was going to take this to trial. Yeah, of course she's not going to take it to trial because, one, you all left evidence. You left a journal. You have children that can testify. Besides, Jodi testifying against you doesn't really matter. You change your attitude. Well, yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and plead guilty. You didn't have a choice but to plead guilty. Doesn't matter if Jodi testified, didn't testify, want to testify, want to take it to court. The point is, you're both evenly yoked in the nonsense and the abuse. So it doesn't really matter which one wanted to take it to trial, not take it to trial. Which one wanted to, ask for a plea. The point is, there's evidence, Dodo Bird, that you abused your kids. I just don't understand the mindset. This is why I know she does not have any remorse for what she has done to her children. She has no remorse. I don't believe it. Because she's been mistreating her children, you see, before she met Jodi. That's the gist of the story. They're both heathens. They're both foul. They just so happen to cross paths and link up, which you see this all the time with true crime. Two evildoers crossing paths, linking up, having a sexual relationship, having a courtship, friendship. They keep saying, you attract what you are. Of course, I don't agree with that, because I think there's some really nice people out here who attract demon seeds. But these two were already jacked up before they met each other. That's the gist of the story. And the husband, to me, he's just as, because he rode the ride long before Jodi came along. And when they were abusing the kids and having these harsh punishments, he was right there in the house, right there along with his wife. He sat in that house all those months while that boy slept in an open room on a beanbag. So you can't blame Jodi for that. So that will let you know other things were going on in the household when Ruby and the husband were together. He just wasn't around for this last escapade because she didn't need her husband. Don't you find that strange? A woman putting her husband out and keeping the therapist in the house with her? What fool would allow a woman to come live in their house, and then next thing you know, the wife is coming to you saying, well, Jodi thinks it's best that you move out. And the next thing you know, he moves out, there's no more contact. And he foolishly moved out, and he foolishly didn't call his wife. Why would you not call your wife and check on your children? There's no such thing as somebody told him, she said she wouldn't let him see the kids. Well, you're just as crazy for believing that. Because nobody put a gun in his head and told him to get out that house. He chose to leave, that's on him. He chose to stay away from his wife, that's on him. He chose to stay away from Ruby, that's on him. You're going to walk around every day and never call your kids and check on your kids. You're never going to go see your kids at school. You're never going to knock on your house where you pay a mortgage. And you want me to believe, okay, this is all Jodi's doing. No, Ruby has been fucked up. And he knew it, and he rode the ride before Jodi came into the picture. She just so happened to meet somebody just like her. Just like her. And the fact that she's quoting scriptures here, the children rising up. Well, first of all, Jodi, these aren't your children. So this is why I'm trying to make people see there was more going on between Jodi and Ruby. Because why are you jumping on board to help this woman abuse her kids? It makes no sense. It makes no sense to expect a person to help you abuse your children, and it makes no sense for you as an outsider to listen at them spew stupid verses from the Bible and make up stuff and say, oh, the children are evil, they're this, they're that. And you say to yourself, you're supposed to be a psychologist, oh yeah, you're right, I agree. And then you go along with the program. And you're a psychologist. There's more going on between these two. That's my personal opinion.
Both pleaded guilty, Ruby calling Jodi a liar who deserves more time behind bars.
Jodi, she can lie on her paperwork, and she probably will. The only reason she pled is because she didn't want to do life. She knew I would testify.
Is that change of heart sincere? Is it not? I spoke with a local defense attorney about what we learned, what we heard today. I'll bring you that later this hour. Jake Taylor, KUTV 2 News.
A lot to take in there, Jake. Thank you. At the center of the child abuse investigation involving Ruby, Franke, and Jodi Hildebrand are, of course, the children.
Brian Schnee has covered this case extensively and shed some new light on where first responders located Frankie's children on the day the two women were taken into custody.
Well, first off, we've tried to be delicate with this situation regarding the children and their well-being since the very beginning. However, today we've learned new information about the children and the condition they were in. Doorbell camera video from August 30th, 2023. Showing Ruby Frankie's son ringing the doorbell of Jodi Hildebrandt's neighbor.
Hi, how's this? Wondering if you could do 2 favors.
Well, what are they?
Take me to the nearest police station.
After asking some questions, the neighbor calls 911.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs.
The video showing neighbors caring for the boy,
He's hungry and he's thirsty.
giving him food and water. Moments later, an ambulance arrives along with a police officer.
Police officers, open up!
Meanwhile, conflicting reports with how many children were in Jodi Hildebrandt's home.
I'm a police officer. You okay?
They located another one of Frankie's children.
We got Jodi out here. You know Jodi?
As officers continued clearing the home, Officer Nick Tobler stays with the child in the closet.
You're okay. Do you need help?
What is disturbing about this information here in this video is that this closet is empty. There's nothing in it. It's a closet off of a bathroom, one of the bathrooms. And why is it empty? No clothes, nothing in it. And as you see, the child is sitting there, stoic, won't respond. And this went on for 4 hours. This is devastating to watch. People, you don't know people. And obviously, from reading the comments in the chat, it's self-explanatory. You don't know people. And obviously, some of you are on board with this behavior, as I see, because you're making excuses for these people, which is what I expect. Picking and choosing which one is better than the other one. There is not one better than the other one. And that's my personal opinion. I'm a realist. I'm not going to sit here and sit up and say, oh, well, this one, they didn't do nothing. Well, if you originally got on the ride and jumped off the ride, you're still a party to the bullshit. Just because you weren't sitting around when the shit popped out doesn't mean you didn't have information and were a party to the abuse when it started. So how are you less guilty? Please explain to me.
Hours go by. Officers sit with her, talk with her, bring her pizza, and play music. Then a local EMT came in.
I want to get you some help too. We are safe.
Seconds later, she walks out. Both were treated and taken to the hospital. From the time police located the first child at the neighbor's house to the time the second child walked out of the closet with EMTs, first responders had been on scene for nearly 5 hours that day. Brian Schnee, KUTV2 News.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Difficult to watch and listen to. Continuing our team coverage in this child abuse case involving Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt.
That's right, Amanda Gilbert joining us live right now. And Amanda, from the evidence you've looked through already, what do we see from Ruby and Jodi on the day in late August where we first learned about this abuse?
Well, after that moment where Ruby Franke's son goes to the neighbor, the moment you just saw, police respond. They start searching for these two women. And here is the moment that they first made contact with Jodi Hildebrandt at her Ivan's home.
Open the door! Jodi? Can you step out?
I invite her.
That's great. Step out of the house.
No, I'm not going to step out.
Step out of the house. Step out of the house. We're just gonna do it. There we go.
How do you come in my house?
Have a seat right there.
Do you have a search warrant?
Have a seat right
Do you
there.
have a search
Have
warrant?
a seat right there.
Now, officers that run inside the house, they are looking for that other child of Ruby Franke. They eventually find her hiding in a closet. Nearly 45 minutes later, an officer talks to Hildebrandt about drafting a search warrant to access what has been known as a safe room. And then let's take a look inside that safe room. Once officers make access, there's a toilet, a mattress, a kitchenette. You'll notice no food, no water in the refrigerator, in the cabinets. What they do find, ropes, chains. And so
this is the part of the story that gets worse. You're living in this 10,000 square foot domain, dark, cabinets dark, walls dark, sparse furniture in the living room, and no food, nothing. So what were they eating? Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. Stay woke. Nothing. And then, of course, Jodi's living single or half single. I don't really know what I'm watching. A bunch of nonsense, basically. Just this big sprawling house in the middle of the desert, originally by herself, before she got tangled up with Ruby Franke. Barely any pictures on the wall when they walked through the living areas. I saw maybe one picture on the wall, one or two pictures. Just dark and cold, because that's who Jodi is. She's a dark being. And that's expected to be somewhere dark, cold, or horrible feng shui, rather. I believe in feng shui, but not like this.
what was Ruby Franke during all this? Well, jail phone calls tell us that she was actually on her way to a dentist appointment that morning. She gets a call from Hildebrandt, and then she turns around to head back to that Ivan's home. Let's take a listen.
When I got to the house, I mean, it looked like the movies. There was a red fire truck. There was a black van with tinted windows. There were two ambulances. There were 20 cop cars.
Now, both Hildebrandt and Franke were arrested. They were taken to the police station for questioning. Hildebrandt did speak. She didn't have much to say. She mentions an attorney. Ruby Franke, though, she stays mostly silent during questioning. At one point, an officer even asks if she's in need of medical care. She is so quiet. Again, eventually, both of these women are taken to jail in the same vehicle. Reporting live, Amanda Gilbert, KUTV 2 News.
All right, so we would like to hear from you at home. What is your reaction to all of this new evidence released in this case? If you would like to weigh in, you can scan the QR code right there on your screen to get to our poll. Right now, 83%, the overwhelming majority, say they should serve max prison time.
Truly tough to fathom everything that happened to you. A reminder, if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, resources are available. You can call the national hotline and the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition. If the danger is immediate, though, of course, call 911.
Still ahead here on 2 News, the dozens of journal entries in Ruby Franke's own handwriting that detail the punishments and abuse her children went through.
Promoted in Bountiful.
Welcome back to 2 News at 4. We're continuing our 8 passengers team coverage this afternoon as the Washington County Attorney released new evidence in their child abuse case against Ruby Franke and also Jodi Hildebrandt.
We have a handful of new videos, including body camera video showing the very first moments that officers entered Jodi's home responding to a 911 call after an abused child was found. Another video shows police talking with Franke before putting her in handcuffs and then walking her away. Plus, we also see Franke and Hildebrandt's interrogation, where Franke can be seen sitting stone-faced through several questions.
Now, part of that evidence includes a handwritten journal Ruby Franke kept that includes both a timeline and also detailed entries regarding 2 of her children.
Ariel Harrison is live with us this afternoon to walk us through some of those entries, and we should note again, some of this information may be disturbing. Ariel.
Jim, Heidi, the 60-page long document, while heavily redacted, gives us a pretty clear picture and idea of what Ruby Franke was thinking. Dozens of entries focus on heavily the fact that she truly believed her kids were possessed or demonic and that they needed to be punished.
This is a printed copy of the 60-page journal. In Ruby Franke's own handwriting, it details punishments and abuse for 2 of her children. In the redacted document, Frankie seems to have a hyper-focus on her belief the children, referred to as E and R, are disobedient, manipulative, dishonest, and even possessed, leading her to punish them in various ways. On July 11, 2023, Ruby writes about ordering her son to stand outside in the sun.
R, or I should say his demon, stays in the shade. I push R into the sun, R comes back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get in the sun, R doesn't even flinch.
As a defense attorney, that's hard to get past. I mean, those are your client's words.
Sky Lazaro is a defense attorney not associated with this case. She sat down, though, with 2 News and talked about this journal and how it was likely a key reason both cases went through the courts as quickly as they did.
The reality is something like this is probably the very reason we ended up with a plea in this case really early on.
A written timeline in the journal notes an apparent plan of going to Arizona and finding land. A later entry reveals more about that.
Jodi and Jay are going on a road trip to look at property in Arizona. Ruby has some cash in the bank. If the property's right, we can move on financing immediately.
Right there should tell you everything you need to know about their relationship. Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrand. Jodi and Jay are going on a road trip to look at property in Arizona. Ruby has some cash in the bank. If the property is right, we can move on financing immediately. We decided the escalation of the kids is not manageable here and now. This is a repeat of Lori Vallow, Daybell, and Chad Daybell. Checkmate. The proof is in our own writing. Jodi and Jay. So Jay will possibly be the woman, I'm assuming, that was running the connections company for Jodi Hildebrand or somebody in that arena. Why would Jodi and this other person be going to look for property and then she stipulates and says, we decided the escalation of the kids is not manageable here and now. So they were looking for property to take these kids somewhere and do the unthinkable. Or let's just say to finish them off, because as I just said, they weren't going to make it anyway. The children had the little boy not escape and got law officials involved. Thank God the neighbor opened the door, the second neighbor opened the door, because it's in our own writing here. The situation is not manageable here and now. The situation of the children has escalated. We can move on financing immediately. What in the hell does that tell you? It tells me everything I had already said before when I first started talking about this case. The children were going to end up dead, and they were going to cover it up, and nobody was going to know anything about those kids. So now you got to ask yourself, if you move with Jodi to another property, what was she going to do with her other 2 children? Help me understand. Have a separate house and go back and forth from house to house? And she's cut off everybody who could stay in tune to the children who are visible. How is this going to work, Ruby Franke? Jodi Hildebrand, help the queen understand. What were you all going to do with the middle children? Because they were going to start to wonder where their siblings are. See, this is the thing about people who think they have it all mapped out. They don't. Were you going to keep those kids enrolled in school? You think they were never going to talk about their siblings, where they are? So then it also means you'd have to have cut off your older children. Checkmate. Stay woke, everybody. I'm woke. I've been woke. I've been woke. Exactly, Lolo. Sounds like a relationship to me. Let me repeat this. Jodi and Jay are going on a road trip to look at property in Arizona. Oops, of all places. Daybell, Lori, Ruby has some cash in the bank. If the property is right, we can move on financing immediately. We decided the escalation of the kids is not manageable here and now. They were going to kill those kids. They're going to kill those kids.
Decided the escalation of the kids is not manageable here and now.
Beyond depriving the children of food and water and what Ruby refers to as fasting, there are also entries where she writes about chopping her daughter's hair off.
The longer the lies are allowed to be spread, the larger the intervention and physical the intervention needs to be. I cut more off E's head. We doused her with water in the dog wash.
Frankie also outlines an incident.
We cut off more of her hair, doused her with water in the dog wash. Are you hearing that? See, it doesn't matter white, black, Hispanic, Arab, Jew, Iranian, Russian, tall, short, fat, lawyer, doctor, engineer, psychologist, school teacher. You don't know people. Imagine all the people who crossed the paths of these two demons and thought they were nice people. I'll wait. Same thing with Kevin Franke. I loop him in too. Walking by these pretty houses, driving by these pretty houses, you're looking at the manicured lawn and you're wondering what's inside those houses. You look at the pretty wreaths on the door and you're telling yourself, oh my gosh, this is a gorgeous place, beautiful houses, you know, $600,000-$700,000 houses, 1.1 million, just gorgeous. Middle of the desert, Hildebrandt's living in this nice area, surrounded by big old rocks, and little do you know, it's a prison. How about that? And the fact that the neighbor told it during the 911 call tells you everything you need to know. There's been problems over there. See, because people don't listen. See, when I heard that little boy talking and he asked that neighbor for 2 favors, I thought he was probably scared that hell, he might go back and take him back to the damn house, because he doesn't know this man he's getting help from. He doesn't know if this man's going to turn on him and say, oh yeah, I know Jodi. She's a nice lady. Let me take you back over there. You're making a mistake, because you've got some sick wacko people right now. You could tell them you're being abused and they would take your ass right back over there to the person that's abusing you, because you got people who believe anything you tell them. Anything. I see it all the time. Oh no, she's not like that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any problems with her. Because you don't have any problems with her doesn't mean she's not a problem. Just because you get along with Joe doesn't mean Joe isn't fucked up. You speak for yourself. You can't speak for my situation with Joe or my situation with Susie. And that's what's wrong with a lot of us. We brag on people because we haven't been crossed by them yet. And I get it. You're not supposed to tell people who to be friends with. But the point is, you don't know people. And this case, like so many true crime cases, is evident of not knowing a person. Seeing signs too. They're not right, and you still hang around them anyway. You hang around with them anyway. Just like with Lori and Chad, those people that were hanging around them, they started seeing signs that Lori was unraveling. All you have to do is listen. You start hearing somebody talking bad about the husband, start calling them demons. You're thinking to yourself, what? Oh, she's just, upset. But when the conversation is all the time and it's rhetorical, you might need to step back and say, well, maybe there's more going on here. And if you're friends with the other person, maybe you should talk to that person if you like them and say, hey, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I'm noticing every time, Lori comes around, she keeps calling you a demon, and she doesn't even call you by your name anymore. Ding, 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 red flag. You're giving the person a name that's not their name. Come on now. That should have been a red flag to anybody. When you start calling the person another name, you start calling them by the initial, you should see there's something wrong with the person that's spinning a story. Because now They're not identifying the person by, Bob or Joe. They're giving them some whack-ass name they didn't came up with. You might need to reassess this person that you're talking to. See, there were signs all along about all these people. JODI overriding her patients, getting in their personal business, running to the church elders, telling one guy's personal business, what was going on during his private meetings with her. She had no right to do that. That's a violation of trust, and it's unethical. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. All these people were showing signs there was something wrong with them, but naturally, you can't tell a grown person how to navigate. They want to cut you off, quit talking to you. There's nothing you can do about it. Sadly, these children were being abused. They're being abused all along. May not have been so severe as what they did to the small children in Utah, in southern Utah, but the signs were always there that RUBI was unhinged. That's why she cut her family off, you see. She was spiraling out of control then.
Where she nearly suffocated her son, she writes,
"It may sound like I'm underwater with you, but hear me, I love you. Then I put my hand tightly over his nose and mouth. I'm coming to you in this water and putting my hands on your nose and mouth. The devil has and says I'm hurting you, abusing you, but what am I really doing? You are putting oxygen on me to help me breathe. Yes, that's right."
Yeah, really tough to listen to. We asked attorney Sky Lazaro why any...
Let's go back to that.
"I'm coming to you in this water and putting my hands on your nose and mouth. The devil has and says I'm hurting you, abusing you, but what am I really doing? You are putting oxygen on me to help me breathe. Yes, that's..."
She's sitting here writing notes about suffocating the child, putting her hand over a child's nose and mouth. It's right there. Her own notes, her own journal, her own handwriting. RUBI Franke. And she found a kindred spirit in JODI Hildebrandt. And you're going to sit here and tell me these two were not having sex? Please. You can't be this oblivious. Two women who are allegedly supposed to be heterosexual, sleeping in a house in the middle of nowhere, abusing two small children, cut off from their family and friends, got some other woman taking care of the other middle children. You better wake up. The proof is in the pudding.
Right.
Yeah, really tough to listen to. We asked attorney Sky Lazaro why any of this didn't reach the insane or incompetent to stand trial standard. We were told that bar is incredibly high and is likely the reason we saw this go to the police for both of these women. Reporting live, Ariel Harrison, KUTV2 News.
All right, everybody. Taking a deep dive into the new evidence released pertaining to this crime. Let's take a look inside of JODI Hildebrandt's house, where police officers had the body cam to show you the children were tied up, weren't eating much. As you see, that's a bowl, looks like probably tomato sauce in a bowl, just literally starving the children to death. ABC4 Utah is the source. Thank you for joining me. Brief intermission. She wrote it down because she didn't care, honey. She never cared. Bold. Didn't think she was going to get caught.
Who's taking us inside the home of JODI Hildebrandt, where it all happened. Garrett?
Yeah, Brian, that's right. And going through the video, it was a sad video to watch unfold itself. However, one thing I will say, in these new release videos, you can see the moments where police and first responders first step into the home, where they end up finding the little girl.
Step out of the house.
No, I'm not gonna step out.
Step out of the house. Step out of the house.
Wait a minute, how do you come to my house?
Is there anybody else in the house?
Yes,
Two kids?
there's a little girl.
Just one?
She's right over here.
Okay. How old is she?
She'll be 10 next week.
Okay.
According to the time on the body camera footage, they discovered the child in a closet about 7 minutes after they had made their way into the home. This is the moment they found the little girl.
You come on, I'm a police officer.
I know. Can you move me?
Hey, you okay? So it's just you in here?
Empty closet.
I'm Sergeant Tobler.
Empty closet, everybody.
A few minutes pass by, and Sergeant Tobler sits down with a girl, trying to speak with her.
Empty closet. Shaved head.
It's okay if I just stay here with you. We don't have to say anything.
This is the life of a child. 9-year-old girl. Hello, Sammy. Everybody in the chat.
What looks to be a few hours later, according to the time on the body cam footage, the little girl is still in the closet. The Santa Clara Ivans Fire Rescue Team is even attempting to talk with the girl, but nothing.
Okay. That's it, I don't even want to talk about. It's okay to talk to me.
This situation left several first responders feeling very emotional. You could just see and feel the emotions that those first responders were feeling. Coming up tonight at 6, I'll have more on what happened inside that home. Reporting from Ivans, Garrett James, ABC 4 News.
All right. ABC has a special. Please check it out. Showing you everything pertaining to this nonsense, pertaining to these demon-fied folks. Tell you don't know people. You don't know people at all. Later, I'm going to come back after this live and we're going to talk about the rest of Mr. DeHart. He has a wound under his eye. Did he suffer physical abuse from Knoxville Police Department or Blount County Police Sheriff's Department? He's been accused of murder, attempted murder of some law officials in Blount County. We're going to take a deep dive into that. I'm trying to see which one I want to show. Let's do law and crime for just a second. Thank you all for joining me. Law and crime is the source of these next videos pertaining to children and journals and the evidence of bondage and kidnapping, torture of these kids.
You kind of love it. You kind of love it. I'm a police officer.
We're getting a glimpse into newly released videos showing the devastating moments after police encountered the children of disgraced YouTuber RUBI FRANKE. Officials have recently released a large amount of evidence against the former mom blogger, who is serving a lengthy prison sentence for felony aggravated child abuse. FRANKE and her then business partner JODI HILDEBRANDT'S arrests were triggered after FRANKE's 12-year-old son was found emaciated with open wounds and duct tape around his body. A newly released Ring camera video, the young boy appears thinner and without shoes, in stark contrast to how he appeared years earlier in FRANKE's vlog. When he rings a neighbor's doorbell, he asks, "Can you take me to the nearest police station?"
Yes.
Hi, how's this? Wondering if you could do 2 favors.
Well, what are they?
Taking me to the nearest police station. Well, actually, this one's fine.
What's going on, son? Have a seat there.
Is this personal business?
Have a seat. What's your name? How'd you get here?
The neighbor then calls 911.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he said he had just came from a neighbor's house. And you know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
Is your door locked?
No, I'm sitting outside with him on the front patio.
Okay, cool.
And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid.
the neighbors out of their home, or is anybody looking for them that you can see?
No. Our homes are far enough away. I'm not sure. How did you get out of the house? Porch?
Yeah.
He said you just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jodi Hildebrand, and she lives 2 doors up the street.
Body cam video later shows officers and emergency responders arriving. One EMT seems so shocked by the extent of Frankie's son's injuries, she can be heard saying, "I'm going to cry." Frankie's son is later put inside an ambulance for treatment, where video shows officers talking to the young boy while he's on the gurney and asking who put the duct tape on him.
How did you get the ropes on you? Who did them? You're not in trouble with me, okay? We're just trying to figure out what's going on. Our main focus right now is you, okay? Who put the ropes on you? What's to help you what?
Portions of the evidence have been redacted. While he's being treated, he tells the officers he's not the only one who needed help. His sister is still inside Hildebrandt's home. When officers go inside of the home, that's when they make another heartbreaking discovery. Ruby Frankie's young daughter, who we're referring to as EF, sitting inside of the closet, cross-legged, on the floor in complete silence.
You come on, I'm a police officer. I know what you mean. Hey, you okay? Is this you in here? I'm Sergeant Tobler. What's your name? I just have one. Where's your sister at?
Empty closet. Empty closets. That's strange. All the closets are empty.
Okay.
Very peculiar. Take the poll, everybody.
Yeah, that's okay. Can you come with me though?
Sergeant Tobler
See the child sitting there alone in the dark.
Was a little boy due to the young girl having a buzz cut at the time. Tobler then tells EF they apprehended Jodi Hildebrandt, but the little girl still sits silent.
Listen to what he says about the child, what she says about the child. Thank you for joining me.
You want to talk to me? Yeah, that's okay. Can you come with me though?
Sergeant Tobler would later tell ABC News they initially believed Frankie's daughter was a little boy due to the young girl having a buzz cut at the time.
The officer thought that the child in the closet was a boy. It was a girl. Because the other child told him who else was in the house with him, specifying his sister. So they had to go back, I guess, to look and say, well, I'll be damned. What we thought was a boy is a girl. They have cut this girl child's hair off. Pure hatred. Do you think they were going to move to Arizona to kill the kids? 60% yes, no, 10%, 30% of you are not sure. So I want to say this to those who voted, not sure. Well, what the hell do you think they were getting ready to move to Arizona to do? Plant flowers? I'm just saying. What do you think Jodi and Ruby were getting ready to do when they went to Arizona with these 2 kids that they're starving to death? I'll wait. What were they getting ready to do in another state? They've cut off everybody. She's legally married. She's not even talking to her husband, and she's going to move out of state with this woman. They both look a hellified mess. You can see that in the videos. And they're getting ready to do what with these 2 kids they're already starving and abusing? Oh, you thought they're going to enroll them in school? Okay. Wow, wow, wow.
Tobler then tells EF they apprehended Jodi Hildebrandt, but the little girl still sits silent, seemingly too afraid to speak.
We got Jodi out here. You know Jodi? She's outside with us. You take your time, but I'm in a hurry. I'm a police officer.
Hello, Sonia. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. 4 hours of this.
You doing okay? Are you scared? Yeah. You're okay. Do you need help?
The child is not talking. This is what happens when you are brainwashed to believe that you are evil, you are possessed, you are a bad person. You don't respond because naturally they told the children not to speak back, not to talk back. So here is a police officer in the room trying to get you to speak and you don't speak because you've been programmed not to talk. Probably only speak when spoken to. This is what was going on with the minor children in the care of Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt.
No. Not gonna hurt you. Promise. See this right here? It's a badge. And it tells me I don't hurt people. I'm just here to make sure you're okay. You're in no way in any trouble. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're okay. And I get if you're scared, I would be too. Okay? You want to come with me?
Still visibly afraid, the officer then offers reassurance to the young child by sitting down on the floor with her.
It's okay if I just sit here with you. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Okay? I'll just sit here with you.
Doing your thing without.
Sorry about that, everybody. Brief commercial. The little girl's just sitting there in the floor. This is not talking. She's programmed not to talk. So she wasn't going to answer. She finally does, though. She comes around. They start talking about pizza.
Sergeant Tobler asks the young girl if she's hungry and would like some food.
Officer, okay, over here. You can eat. Thanks, sir.
EF seems nervous to eat as she stares at the small personalized pizza for several minutes before slowly inching the food toward her so she can take a bite.
Wow. How terrible is this? How terrible is this? This is horrible. Can you imagine you have not been eating for God knows how long? Because I don't know how many months this went on. They moved to this house in May at Jodi's house. Can you imagine food is sitting in front of you and you can't decide to eat it? Because she's probably scared. This is a joke, practical joke. I start eating this pizza and somebody jumps out, starts beating me, tie me up. This is bad. This is why I tell you, you don't know people. You have no idea how people are living. You have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. You do not have any idea how children are being treated. And you cannot keep thinking because you see a well-dressed kid at school or walking in the mall or Walmart that they're not getting mistreated when they get home. That's just a myth. Well, they look nice, they're dressed nice. Oh, it's a pretty house. How many times has the police gone into a house and the neighborhood was nice and there was abuse in the house? Like those people that had all those kids out there in California and they all were wearing what, 10 pounds strong? Yeah. A house is an illusion.
Frankie's daughter reportedly eats the entire personal pizza and half of the large one. More than an hour goes by and EF is still afraid to leave the closet as officials take turns to try to get her up. But she
eats a whole personal pizza and also half of a regular pizza. That's how hungry the child was on this morning that they finally rescued her.
not budging. One EMT tries to get her to talk, but she said she's nervous.
You don't want to talk? Okay. Imagine I said I don't really want to talk anymore. It's okay to talk to me. Are you scared?
It's unclear what was said after EF tells the EMT she's nervous. However, 10 minutes later, officials reassure EF she won't be harmed.
So can we carry you from there? Sorry, please. You promise. Pinky promise. We helped your brother. And we got him some help too. And that's what we want to do for you. That's what we want to get you some help too. We are safe. We will not hurt you, and we won't do anything to hurt you.
It's unclear what was said next, but after nearly 4 hours, EF stands up with the emergency responders and slowly walks out of the closet. EF is later taken to a hospital. Hildebrand and Frankie were ultimately arrested. When officers later questioned Ruby Frankie, she doesn't say a word, seemingly unfazed.
Is this your order? I'm gonna.
It's yours if you want it. We'll say that. How's that?
And also snacks if you need anything to eat. So I know I introduced myself to you earlier. My name is Detective Bates, and this is Sergeant Tolbert. We're just here to talk to you about kind of a few things involving your kids. So first, do you live down here or? Or do you live up north? Do you want to talk to me about where you live or how many kids you have? So we just spoke with your husband, and he said you guys have 6 kids. Are those all together? Are those all your kids? I can wait all day. So it's up to you if you want to talk to us about what's going on. Would you feel more comfortable talking to one of us?
Or do you want me to take a step out for you want?
Or if you feel more comfortable talking to him, I can step out.
After minutes of not saying anything, Frankie utters back she'll wait for a lawyer.
I'll wait till I have a lawyer. Okay. So you don't want to talk to us at all? Do you want to answer that? Or you don't want to talk to us about anything?
Do you all see the behavior of this crazy ass woman, Ruby Franke? This is why I keep trying to tell you she doesn't have any remorse for abusing her children, she or Jodi, because their behavior during interrogation, their behavior in being arrested shows you they don't care. You're not gonna make me believe from August up until December 2023, everybody found Jesus, Allah, and now we have remorse. Hell no, you don't. You see, she's sitting right here. She won't say a fucking thing. Never asks, well, how are my children? How are my children doing? Jodi, same thing. Well, how are the kids? How are the kids? Soon as the police knock on the door, she's got the lawyer on the phone, on speaker. Who calls their lawyer? You call the lawyer because you know that little boy ran away and he went to get help. You already know what's going on. And here you have Ruby just sitting here. They're trying to talk to her. And you think they have remorse? They're only mad that they got caught. They're mad that little boy got out. I'm trying to tell you, if that little boy hadn't have gotten out, you would have missing persons posters up for those 2 little kids right now. You can bet your bottom damn dollar. They were getting ready to kill these kids. Those kids were going to be unalive. They were going to end up buried somewhere, just like the case with Lori Vallow and Chad. You were going to be talking about 2 missing children because you know damn well they were not going to survive not eating. Come on, let's keep it real.
So yeah, this is just your chance to tell us. We're just trying to get your side of the story. So it's your chance to do that. But it's up to you. First, you're to talk. And I mean, I'm not asking any criminal questions. If you don't want to talk to us, just let us know and we'll be done.
I already told you.
Listen.
You want a lawyer? Okay.
I want a lawyer.
Easy.
Thank you.
Is there anything else I can get for you when you need that? I got the water, you need a bathroom break or anything like that.
Should have got a plastic bag. Do her like what she did to her son, putting her hand over his nose and mouth. Should have asked her. See, I almost called her Lori. Maybe the next live, that's what I'll do. Lori versus Ruby. What's the difference? There is none. Well, maybe while she's incarcerated, she and Jodi will they'll meet some people who won't think so kindly of them. Maybe show them the ropes in there. I don't know. 9 times out of 10, they're not even locked up with regular, well, I don't want to say regular, but other inmates. They're probably in a pod with similar creatures who have committed similar crimes against children, because sometimes they house them differently in jail according to the space they have. So she and Jodi are probably in pods where others have abused children, but they're not locked up with, in pods with murderers and other said creatures. Darn. Sure wish I could find out.
Franke's response was completely the opposite of Hildebrandt's, who did briefly speak with investigators.
How long you lived here in Highlands? 6 years. The same house? You married?
Where'd you move from?
This is County.
And how long were you up there for?
I'm a little nervous.
You're I'll be honest with you, if I was sitting over there, I'd be a little nervous too. So don't worry about it. We're just here to talk.
Look at Jodi's hands. Look at her hands. It's not to be disrespectful, but Jodi reminds me of a man. Pay attention. She reminds me of a man. Her hands to me are very thick-like. I think Ruby saw a man in Jodi Hildebrandt. Stay woke. You're looking at a woman with boobs, but she's manly-like.
Get your side, and right now we're just asking you just simple questions. I tell you that you're that kind of thing.
I watched too many detective movies.
How you?
Which one's your favorite?
Me too. Yeah, honestly, I sit there and I'm married, and I sit there and watch those with my wife, and I say, man, we don't. That's not how we do it. Hey, that's not right. So don't take. There's some good ones out there. Don't get me wrong, but most of them are probably a little off base. We're not as mean. I won't get up and beat you up. We don't do that.
We just want to get to know you a little. So if you just kind of want to share a little about yourself and what brought you down here, and
So I trust my attorney. He said, don't say anything. And I said, I have nothing to hide. And he's like, I know that, but just let me be there with you when we talk. So you guys seem nice people.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to be typical. This is really, if you knew all the pieces, I think you'd have a lot of empathy for what's going on.
and That's what we're looking for. And you're an adult. And the thing about our interview, if we ask you any questions that you don't want to answer, you can just tell us, I don't want to answer that question.
Don't you find it strange or not strange? Because this is just playing crazy about, oh, my lawyer told me not to talk, blah, blah, blah. But really, Jodi is the talker and Ruby wasn't. These two are hilarious. Just grand actresses. Grand.
And on in that home, or what went on up north that brought them into your home.
Okay.
And so if you want to share any of that and you don't want to answer any other questions, that's okay.
I'd like to just tell you, but I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're gonna flip my words up. I don't know.
And that's the good thing about cameras. Everything is pretty much double recorded, audio, video, and it's for the safety of for you and for us, because we don't want to flip your words. And this will all be pretty much right there to support you. So we're not going to use anything against you.
He's so insistent that he's an honest, good man, goes to church.
You have the neighbor telling you she's been a problem as a resident on the block. She's abused this woman's children with Ruby's consent, and now she's sitting here in interrogation playing dumb and talking about how nice her lawyer is and why would he lie to me about talking, and oh, he's a great guy, he's a Christian. Hearing this bullshit? This is what they do. Try to play on people's intelligence, because this is what Jodi has been doing as a psychologist. Stay woke. She takes the stuff you tell her, she uses it against you. She goes and calls the elders of the church your personal business of what your device, your issues you're having in your life, whatever bad things you're allegedly doing and saying. Go run to the church and tell it. Now she's sitting here in interrogation doing the same damn thing. Well, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what I can say to you and not say to you. You're a psychologist, for God's sake. Stop the bullshit. It's a game. And she plays it well. She and Ruby Franke. You hear the same MO when Ruby finds out Jodi decides to take a plea, plead guilty, then she turns on her. Oh, well, of course she would do that because, she fed me all this stuff and I followed in behind her and believed stuff she was doing, and as if she had no part in what was going on between she and Jodi and abusing the children. They're both kindred spirits. They are evenly yoked. They are the same. If you didn't know any better, you would think the same person created both of them, mother and father. That's what's so sick about this story. 6 degrees of separation. These people cross paths and they become one.
I don't know your attorney, to be honest.
Well, I'm just saying he's a good honest man.
Yeah.
And I'm an honest person as well, so great. And he just
Did you hear that? I'm an honest person as well. Well, if you're so honest, what are you doing sitting there with an allegation of a child escaping out your plantation? Oh, so the lawyer's honest. I'm honest. I don't know if I can talk to you or not. Oh, but my lawyer, see how she goes from one subject to the next. Oh, but my lawyer, he's a great guy. Oh, he's an astronaut. He can fly planes. This is what they do. This is why Kevin Franke's a dodo bird. You let this woman come stay in your house. For those who do not know this, Hildebrandt was living in their house before Mr. Kevin left. Pay attention. The writing has been on the wall. Later, she's a con artist. She's a grifter, grinder. She's no different than the people in the street hustling. Jodi was good at what she did. She could take anything you do and say and flip it, turn it around. You heard Ruby saying the same thing. Oh, everybody don't like her, and she does all these nice things for people, and they turned on her, just like what you did. Isn't that right, Ruby? Didn't you turn on her when you found out she was pleading guilty? She's supposed to plead guilty. She helped you abuse your damn kids. She's supposed to plead guilty.
do not say anything.
Maybe just as an attorney,
They all say that.
they always want to be with their clients. I'm not sure, but like I said, at any time, if you don't want to answer a question, you don't have to. So the ball's really in your court on what you do want to answer and what you don't. So,
well, I think it looks sad that I don't want to answer anything, but it's not because I'm trying to be difficult. I'm really hanging on what you told me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who's your attorney?
I'm hanging on to what he told me to do. Now he's at his name. She can't even remember his name. And you can't make this stuff up. What's your attorney's name? Adam. Excuse me for laughing. This is just ridiculous. It's not funny as far as pertaining to the children, but this BS right here is laughable all the way to the bank. She's talking about how honest he is, what he does. He's a Christian. I'm honest too. What's your lawyer's name? Adam.
His father's an attorney. Brother's an attorney.
Oh, did you? Okay, now she's going down the line of how everybody's a lawyer. Well, his great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaddy knew President Lincoln, Adam. He knew the Kennedys. So you all see where this is going. She doesn't even know his name, but now she's getting ready to tell you who his grandfather was. Oh, the grandfather was a lawyer. His great-uncle was a lawyer. Oh, and the uncle before him was a lawyer. Oh my God, I could chew my paw off.
The street of the town hall is. They all have the same name.
The whole reason we're sitting here today is
they all have the same name.
We just need to have misunderstandings that we just need to clarify.
I know, and I'd love to tell you if you were here, because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with what I say. You know?
That the children are evil.
I'm a psychologist. I've watched people flip things all the time. So I get it. And I sit on your side. I get it.
You hear this bullshit? I hear it all the time. People flip your words. I sit on your side. This is grand manipulation right here. You're seeing it live. No gossip, no he said, she said. You're hearing it live. The grand manipulation that led to the abuse of two innocent children. You can't even say which one coerced the other. They're both the same. They're both evenly yoked. This is what she did in her practice. And I just read today before going live that one lady did a news interview months ago saying she was even talking about her license being suspended during a session. And said she talked about it, or session, she talked about it all the time. This is who JODI is. Woe is me, the world's against me, blah, blah, blah. She also abused her own niece and nephew when they went to live with her. Don't know the circumstances for why those children needed to be in the care of somebody else, but they sent them to the wrong person. JODI doesn't like herself. RUBI doesn't like herself. If you watch clips of RUBI Franke when she had the YouTube channel, she was just a painted clown. A painted clown going live, what they call it? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Painting her lips with that bright-ass red lipstick, just looking like a hot-ass mess. Putting on for the camera because she didn't like herself. And then she meets this bobblehead, and she doesn't like herself either. So you got two bobbleheads together. Possibly two bisexual women at that. Now, I don't care about two women liking each other, but I do believe something sexual was going on between the two because it doesn't make sense. All of this living together, going up down the highway, children over here, children over there, these children being abused. Then you see her journals of her talking about buying property with her. So were you ever going to divorce your husband? I'm confused. There was some hanky-panky going on between the two.
People didn't do that. They do.
Well, if you're not willing to answer any questions about yourself, would you
Hello,
like
Ms.
to
Ellis.
answer
Hello.
questions maybe about Ruby or Kevin that you could help us understand? We just honestly want to understand what their dynamic is, what happened to the children, what caused their separation. And after talking to Kevin, it sounds like you know a lot about their dynamic and their relationship. So if you could help us understand that at the least, that would be awesome.
Oh my God, not Jody
And
Bundy.
that's nothing incriminating towards yourself because it's not pertaining to you. So if you could help us understand that.
Jody, we're going to do this. You asked for your training. We'll leave it at that. We'd like to maybe talk to you later when you have your training at prison.
Absolutely.
And we'll
He
go
made
that
an
way, okay?
appointment at 4 on
You made
Friday.
an appointment
Here.
at your F4.
He talked to the officer and
Okay.
said, "Can we make a time?" And then he said out loud, "Do not talk to them."
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll talk and see if we can schedule that, and maybe that's just something we just do with your training. Okay. Do you have any questions for us? I can answer in the meantime.
No.
Okay. All right. Appreciate your time. We'll have a hang time here, and then we'll come back and get you, and we'll be on our way, okay?
Frankie and Hildebrandt were later carted off to jail where they've remained behind bars since. Last month, Frankie and Hildebrandt were each sentenced to as much as 15 years in prison. Frankie's children, E and R, have reportedly been placed in foster care together, while their father seeks to regain custody. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth.
All right, everybody, just showing you a little bit of footage being released. Law and Crime is the next segment. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Ganji129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live. Law and Crime, everybody. More nonsense with these two. We'll talk about the jailhouse conversations. We're now into hour 1, 47 minutes to the stream. Feel free to go back.
12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's says he just came from a neighbor's house, and you know there's been problems at this neighbor's house.
Does he know his mom's name?
What's your mom's name? Ruby Frankie.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil.
I know this sounds crazy, and I still can't put my finger on why it feels this way, but it feels like it's being set up to end up here. I know that sounds bizarro. I mean, I shouldn't be here. I haven't done anything wrong.
We're now getting a look inside the minds of Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt, with never before heard jailhouse calls just released. And for the first time, the extended 911 call that led to the women's arrests. On August 30th, 2023, Ruby Franke's then 12-year-old son broke free from shackles at Jodi Hildebrandt's Ivins, Utah home. He ran to a neighbor for help and asked the man to call 911.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could do 2 favors.
Well, what are they?
Taking me to the nearest police station.
Ruby Franke rose to fame as the star of the 8 Passengers YouTube channel that chronicled her life along with her husband Kevin and their 6 children. At one point, the channel had more than 2 million subscribers, but has been defunct since before her arrest. Since Franke was taken into custody, we've played you pieces of the 911 call reporting her son's abuse, but this is the first time we're hearing it in full.
911, the address of the emergency.
1961 North Yuan Drive in Ivins. He said he just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jodi Hildebrandt, and she lives 2 doors up the street. Yeah, I think the houses are far apart, so he walked just under the block to get to our house. He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police. But he's very thirsty and
Need an ambulance?
I don't think you need to know.
Just imagine had she caught the little boy. Just imagine that.
Ankles are taped up and they won't tell us
The
why.
little boy had gotten caught by them. Jodi or Ruby.
Yeah, there's sores around him. I think there's a good chance he's been, oh, and he has been around his ankles. I mean, his wrist as well. Okay, this boy has been. This kid is always sitting.
Thank you, Sammy Nicole. Thank you.
He's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Dispatch asks the neighbor about the boy's mother, which is when we hear the name Ruby Franke for the first time.
You know your mom is? Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't matter, son. Do you know where your mom and dad are?
Well, actually, I don't know where my mom is, but I do know where my dad is. He's not nowhere here. Nowhere.
Okay. No, he doesn't see them. He says he knows where his mom is.
He doesn't know where his dad is.
That's correct.
Is his mom home?
He just says he doesn't live around here.
Does he know his mom's name?
What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke. Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
The neighbor is then asked whether there are other children in need.
Can you ask him if any other children were in the home he came from?
Okay. Was any of the kids up at Jodi's house?
He said, well, I have 2 sisters.
2 sisters? Anybody else? No. How old are your sisters? Yeah, this is the 30th of, or excuse me, the 29th of August.
It'll be the 30th of August.
10 and 14, and they're still at this house.
Are they tied up as well?
What's the deal with your sisters? Are they being held? Do they have wounds on them as well?
Nothing bad going on with us.
Okay. Okay. So they're able to walk around the house and everything? Well, okay. He says everything's fine with them. Grain of salt. He says what's happened to him is his fault.
This 911 call led to both Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke's arrests.
Perfect.
We're also hearing from Ruby Franke herself just one day after her arrest.
This is a call from and paid for by
Ruby, thank you. Purgatory Correctional.
an inmate at Purgatory Correctional Facility. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now.
After less than 24 hours in jail, Ruby makes a call to her husband, Kevin, who reminds her the call is being recorded.
Okay, well, you know that this phone call is being recorded.
Yes, that will come out. That will come out.
Almost right away, Ruby asks whether she's making the headlines.
Are we in the news?
It sounds like at least you're in the news. I don't know about you. I don't know what you're talking about.
In early conversations with Kevin, Ruby calls her arrest a witch hunt.
I'm wondering if they went to Sherry. Should I ask a question?
I don't know.
He's looking for public.
I know there are. And a couple months ago, Business Insider was reaching out to me, and I ignored their email that I'm going dark. I'm not at BYU. I'm not at BYU anymore, so I don't know how they're going to find me.
No, maybe it was supposed to. This is a witch hunt. This devil's been after me for years.
At first, Franke doesn't show any, saying children can be full of evil.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it. You've seen what it takes to fight evil. It's not the person you're fighting.
Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me.
Something it's not.
Beautiful place.
You know that?
Middle of nowhere. Great place
I don't know any of
abuse children.
So I'm calm about this, and I just pray that you'll hang in there.
The next day,
Off the beaten path.
Heaven again and even defends Jodi Hildebrandt.
With all the
most upsetting
cars,
thing is that I am
law
completely
official cars.
That is the most horrible feeling. Like my own family misunderstands me, they misinterpret me, and poor Jodi, they misinterpret her, they misunderstand her. She puts her neck out on the line for people, and then they get mad at her. I mean, it is just horrendous. It's horrendous.
RUBI seems to realize the legal implications ahead, but still blames the entire situation on Satan.
It's 35 years in this, and he said, even if you are acquitted and are released, they will place legal restrictions on your access to the under 18 children.
I figured such.
She's defending Jodi for a minute until they get to jail.
God told me. I was sorry before I called you. I didn't have any information. I didn't know anything. The Spirit said, your children are going to be removed. And I cried out loud. I'm like, no, I'm not done. I'm not ready. And God told me I'm done. And I just, so.
God told her she was done. Done with what?
Satan taking everything away from me that I
love what you find.
Brief intermission. What did God tell her? Done with what?
don't do naughty things.
Don't do naughty things.
Don't do naughty things.
She says, I don't do naughty things. Well, Ruby, you were doing naughty things. You're abusing your children. You're doing it on your YouTube channel. Somebody called you out finally. 18,000 people signed a petition. Workers came to your house and gave you a free pass. And now we need to talk about that. Who is the worker that gave the pass, supervisor, and where are they now? Because look at the fallout of the pass you gave to the Frankies. 2 children abused, taken to a house 3 or so hours away from their home in northern Utah to be abused. And there are people who can testify to the abuse of Hildebrandt. She got a pass. And these children were off the beaten path in this estate down in Utah. And luckily the boy got out and got to safety, because imagine the worst case scenario. Had he not gotten out, he and his sister would have ended up deceased. And they would have covered it up, and we'd be talking about 2 missing children. Stay woke.
I'm in really good trouble.
But the next time we hear from Ruby in late October, she's changed her tune.
I can't say everything that I want to say, but I really did
What are you going to talk about down there?
being arrested, like arrested, because so many people around it.
Why people got to start paying attention to people with children. You think they're abusing their kids? Say something. Call the police.
I know he said it was hard. I got my office thinking it. And he's given a lot of context to, have now started for words, and I'm just so grateful. How many people, the degree of not having spoken up, and I want to use this time, and I know that it's time to change, to repent, and do what I can to I love him and my family.
repeat. There'll be another one. Stay woke.
A month later, Ruby says time away from Jodi has cleared her head.
I could not come out of this without his grace, without his mercy, without his help. This has been the strangest and the most miraculous intervention. It put everybody where they needed to be. It separated me from Jodi, so I'm not hearing her. And I think just being gone and not hearing her has cleared a lot of things up for me.
Ruby and Jodi both pleaded guilty to all charges against them in December of last year. Ruby is caught on a recording discussing the pleas and future court proceedings.
Did you see that Jodi pled guilty today?
I did see that. Yes, is that a relief for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big relief. It's a big relief. There would have been positive the other way too. Had she not pled guilty, there's enough evidence that she could have been convicted for life. But
and you as well.
It would have been messy. It would have been really messy, and the kids would have. So.
So do you and her get the same outcome no matter what now, or is there a chance that it would be different?
That's a really good question. That's one that I've asked Lamar. No, we can still have different outcomes.
Ruby theorizes that Jodi pleaded guilty because she knew Ruby would testify against her and expected Jodi would lie about her mental health history.
She can lie on her paperwork, and she probably will. I don't think she's going to give them her history. But I think in the interview, it's going to be apparent that she's mentally ill. And that will affect how long someone, because they're looking, how repentant are you? How much responsibility are you taking? How are you aware that what you...
If you listen closely to this information, Ruby is still detached from reality, her own reality she's created with this woman, her life as a vlogger, blogger, whatever. She likes the limelight, she likes the attention. You have to be very leery of people who love being in front of the camera all the time. And I'm sure many of you see people like this, YouTube, IG, Facebook, Snapchat. They go live all day, every day. They go live just to tell you they painted their toenails. They go live to tell you they had a bad day. Live, 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 live. And a lot of people notice this. And I'm sure many people say this when they look at their Facebook, because Facebook is prevalent with this. Damn, you were just on here. What are you going live about now? That's what I see with her. I see somebody that loves to go live all the time. That's why she's filming herself at the mall with their kids. Instead of enjoying this time with her children at the mall, enjoying this money time, bonding time with children, rather, she can't do that because she's got the phone up. At the house, same thing. Go to the amusement park, there in the swimming pool. She's got the phone. She likes attention. That's obvious. That's what I thought of. I thought about her when I first started seeing the live streams when this case first broke last summer. I said, this is somebody who loves attention. She has to go live. She's got to put that fucking bright ass red lipstick on and go on and on and on. She was living a lie. You see this all the time with people. This is why you cannot put people on pedestals and brag about people and talk about how great they are and, oh, she does this, he does this. You don't know them. And then the first time they do something you don't like or agree with, now you're mad at her. Oh my God, he's raped 5 women. I didn't know. Yeah, because you didn't know him. Oh, she stole the PTA money. Oh, she defrauded her job. She stole $30,000 from her job because you didn't know her. Because people are human. They fuck up. It's just the way it is. We're of the flesh. We're going to fuck up. But this type of fuck up is different. Now, we're all raised different. We come from different families, different backgrounds. We're taught different. Some people are groomed to be predators. And one would wonder how she was raised. Ruby, also, how was Jodi raised? Because people are going to question this. Because we took a deep dive into Lori Vallow's life growing up. She had a bad history of moving around. That's a bad omen, especially with children. And I get it. Sometimes people can't get their footings in life. They can't get on their feet good. But when you have children, it affects the children, the different people you're talking to, engaged to, married to, you're having sexual relations with, you're running these people in and out of your house. Now you're moving from house to house. We moved around a lot. You also heard the mother tell an interviewer, I always knew something was wrong with Lori. Well, we just ignored it. We knew how she was. You got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. The mother said it. I always knew something was wrong with Lori. Checkmate. And so what was wrong with Lori versus what happened with those children? You got to ask yourself who stood by and saw something was wrong with her, but they didn't say anything. Because what starts out as just quirkiness, odd behavior, odd ideologies, eventually turned into murder of 2 children, of a husband, of Mrs. Daybell, and the attempted murder of her niece's husband. That's a lot of people. And I see the same here. This is a Lori Vallow part 2. And I won't doubt she watched that entire case unfold with Lori Vallow Daybell. I bet you. She followed the case to a T. You don't find it strange these people are all living out in the Pacific Northwest with these whack-ass ideologies and following the same religion? These 2 children would have ended up just like those kids belonging to Mrs. Daybell. And you don't find it odd also a boy and a girl? Queen pays attention. I don't miss nothing. What are the odds? Lori had a boy and a girl murdered, and this lady has a boy and a girl abused on their way to check out because they were starved to death. You all better wake up. You see, a lot of people see signs, but they don't do nothing. They don't say nothing. They just go talk about them behind their back. Girl, let me tell you what happened. Girl, let me tell you what she did. Girl, let me tell you what I saw when I went to their house. You better start saying something. Because this talking to the news after the fact, that shit ain't flying with me. Because I'm getting kind of tired of that. Matter of fact, I am tired of that. Running to the news after the fact to tell a story, spin the web. Well, what difference does it make now? You're going to come to the news and tell me, oh, I saw the little girl. She was outside every day while her mom was going to work. True story. Little girl ended up in the forest in Alabama, taken by her mother from Florida, military woman, psychopath, murders her kid, and dumps her out in the middle of nowhere off a highway in Alabama near her hometown. Because she got tired of being bothered with that kid. That kid was dead weight. So then you got to ask yourself in this case, what's wrong with her other children? These 2 were misfits, demonified, possessed kids, needed an exorcist. So her other children were great beings. What are we talking about here? All these children, and these are the 2 you pick on. They're the worst of the bunch. They are evil. They won't mind. They're disruptive. They're rambunctious. Blah, 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 blah. But she broke them. And that was what she was attempting to do, was to break them. And many children are broken. This is the method. Isolate. Take away privileges, cruelty, torture. bind. It's to break them. That's exactly what happened to the little boy in the box in Florida. To break him. Break his spirit. Make him believe he's the problem. And you saw he testified in court that he believed he was a bad kid. It's the same with these two children. They believe what was told to them. And that's the gist of the abuse. I'm going to make you believe you are a bad person.
That is wrong, and she's not. She's the only reason she could is because she didn't want to do life. She knew I would testify.
Then, Ruby revealed the last time she spoke to Jodi was the day of her arrest.
So when was the last time you talked to her? Was it that day?
Mm-hmm. It was when we were arrested. Yeah, I left early in the morning to go to a dentist appointment with Julie. We left at like 3 in the morning. And she called me sometime in the morning. And so I went back down. But when I got to the house, I mean, it looked like the movies. There was a red fire truck. There was a black van with tinted windows. There were 2 ambulances. There were 20 cop cars. I mean, it was.
Did you just sit in your car?
No, I pulled up and found a spot to park. She lives on cul-de-sac. I parked in the cul-de-sac and I walked up, and the driveway was just full of cops, and I just.
Do you see what she's doing here? She's passing the buck, putting all the blame on Jodi. Oh, she didn't want to get life in prison. She knew I testified. So you already had it mapped out that you were going to blame this woman that she coerced you to abuse your kids. Think about that for just a second. So you're just going to say, oh, yeah, I had these 2 possessed kids, and my psychologist made me believe they were possessed as well, and I just did what she told me to do. That's what she's doing here, blaming Jodi. Oh, she knew I testified. No, bitch. You knew your children were going to testify. Reroute that comment. Your kids are going to testify and say, yeah, mommy mistreated me. Mommy's been mistreating me. She moves this lady in. Our dad leaves. He falls off the face of the earth. And they say, we know we're down here in the middle of nowhere being mistreated by mommy and her girlfriend. Checkmate. It wasn't all about you, Ruby. Stop playing the victim. You've been abusing your kids before you met Jodi Hildebrandt. Checkmate. That's the reason why 18,000 people signed a petition. Because they saw it in your YouTube videos. Better check yourself, honey, before you wreck yourself. And then you go into court trying to act like you're remorseful and sorry that you mistreated your kids. And I know what I did was wrong. And yeah, I take responsibility. And we already know, Ruby, that if that little boy hadn't ran away, they'd be dead right now. See, that's what nobody's really talking about. If the little boy had never ran away and gotten help, we'd be talking about 2 dead kids or 2 children missing. Because that's where they were going to end up. You think you keep going without water and food, you're going to keep breathing? How does that work? She's trying to move out of state. Arizona, of all places. If I didn't know any better, this is a Lori Vallow blueprint. You better stay woke. All the states touching these people have lived are all similar. Utah, Idaho, Arizona. Sweet Jesus, what's in the water out there? Because it's something and it ain't good. This radical ass religion they follow, dirty secrets, sister wives. Yeah, I'm saying it because it needs to be discussed. everybody's a Christian, but yet you believe in the Bible and you believe in this other good book. Man, you people are all over the place. You're jacked up. But see, the thing about abuse, it's usually repetitive. It comes from already being abused. Usually abusers abuse. That's the point. So then we have to ask what was going on in Ruby's life as a child. How did her parents raise her? Good parents, not good parents? Who was the matriarch? Who was the head knocker? Daddy or mommy? Any sexual abuse? Narcissistic parents? Because usually narcissistic parents, they'll produce a narcissistic kid sometimes. Or they'll produce a mediocre kid, mild-mannered kid. It can go both ways. Because you've seen that. Outrageous ass parents, loud, rude, obnoxious, drunks, crackheads, and the children are just sweet as pie. Mannerable, docile, but they got this jacked up ass parent. Then you could have a mild-mannered parent, and they've got this wild ass kid that's just all over the place. Some of it's genetic. What you teach your children, what you don't teach your children. Letting TV raise your children. Whack ideologies from religion. And this is what people don't understand. It's these little things that add up to become big things, which lead you to true crimes, such as this case here. I'm sure none of these people thought that they would grow up to be these type of ruthless heathens. They'd end up on the Law and Crime Network, end up in prison. But it's a choice because they didn't have to abuse these children.
Walked up to the cop and they said, "Are you the mother?" And I nodded my head, and so they took me in and put me in the casita, and I sat there for a couple hours. I just sat there.
Ruby then explains that a clearer picture of what really happened. But Ruby Frankie's jailhouse calls aren't the only ones we're hearing. As Law and Crime's Elizabeth Milner explains, we also hear from Jodi Hildebrandt.
In the newly released jail phone calls, Ruby Frankie's former business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, is showing no remorse for the abuse inflicted upon Frankie's children.
But it was like everything got taken.
Spring break mode is on.
That's expected. No remorse. Because she's been cold. She's cold as ice.
I was torturing so that I could come to jail. It sounds crazy, but it really feels that way. And I don't know if I'm going to be like some kind of example, but when I get out of here, I have a story to tell, and I'm going to try to do everything I can to protect the children, because that's what's happening. It's like kids are being just horribly abused. And instead of the kids, anyways, it's a story, but when you come up to God.
So what I'm saying is you're being crucified in public opinion, so your care has to be super prepared. And the only way he's going to get prepared is if you push him and ride him.
Okay, I will. I'll call him today. He doesn't seem really animated. He seems like, the pictures are going to destroy you. And I'm like, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. Those pictures we didn't. He did that to himself, yes. Did we put that on him and then he rubbed around and cut himself? Yes, but we didn't do that.
In a later phone call, Hildebrandt can be heard visibly emotional, but still defending her actions.
I'm very irritated. Nobody wants the truth. Nobody wants the truth. Nobody wants the truth because these kids. I told Doug, I woke up, the spirit told me, it's all the devil. I mean, you've seen him. I mean, I've known you, for 5 years? You've watched him come at me. And you're exactly right, because he knows I know what he's doing. And he uses these kids. And he uses all of us as the adults, the parents, that don't hold the kids accountable. So now it's abusive to make a kid sleep on the floor. It's abusive. Or it's abusive to, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can't even raise your kids anymore.
In a February recorded call after Hildebrandt pleaded guilty, she refers to Bible scripture while leaving a coded message to a man she's speaking with on the phone.
So there's a section She's talking about the second coming. And, I'm coming from this place of, I was just getting ready to move, and all of a sudden I ended up in prison. Like, what the world? And, one day you'll know all the details and it'll all make sense, but if I could talk in code here. So he said, this is the Lord talking to the disciples. They asked it, like, when shall these things be? Like, when are these things going to come to pass? And so he starts talking about the last days. And he said, that nation shall war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And then he goes, but before all these.
Dark house.
Talks about.
Very dark.
They shall lay their hands.
Look at the walls.
Now, I have been praying for
no
5
pictures.
Months, like, explain this to me.
Nothing on the shelves.
Like, I'm willing to go there, but please let me go right side up. Like, if you want me to be there because you want me to be there, then great. I will not resist it at all, but please help me understand. So I read this morning, and I
want to stop here for just a second. It's almost over, about 6 more minutes. The house is dark. It's stark. No pictures on the wall. No plants. No tulips. No fake plants. It's dark because she's dark. All this money you're spending to pay a mortgage for a house in the middle of the desert, for what? You don't have children, you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't have family, nobody's visiting you except for Ruby. You got her 2 kids held hostage in closets, empty closets, no clothes. See, the proof is in the pudding. The tour of this house tells you everything you need to know about Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. They were evenly yoked in this abuse of these children, the torture, binding of the children. You hear her blaming the child. So he tied himself up. He put cayenne pepper and honey on his wounds. He did that to himself. You also hear that an officer said you could smell the skin, the wounds. You could smell it, even outside, you could smell it. That was deep. So the child did that to himself. Paramedics unraveling the wounds, duct tape, whatever they had the child wrapped up in, and the skin was coming off. They thought it was the gauze, I guess, but it was not. It was the skin. One of the officers said you could smell it. You could smell it because it was raw. It's been raw. And it's torture to put cayenne pepper and honey together. I caught that when I first heard that. Not just honey, but cayenne pepper. Stay woke. And yet, this is all a misunderstanding, says Jodi. You ought to really know the truth. You don't really know what was going on. These kids are evil. The Bible says so. Blah, 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 blah. The children are evil. You ought to really know what's going on. Well, first of all, these weren't your children, Jodi. So you didn't have any business putting your fucking hands on them. That's why you two are 2 peas in a pod. And this is what people do. They will exact crimes together, but when the shit hits the fan and they're caught, here comes the, oh, he made me do it. She made me do it. I was listening to what they said, and they had me fearful, and you can't even make that make any sense. Because Ruby had a whole life with a husband and children in an entirely different city. So you can't use Jodi as the scapegoat. She talked you into this. You didn't even know her at one point. You had a whole life before you met her. You invited her into your life. You invited her to sleep in your house, which anybody should have seen something was odd with that. Who invites their therapist to live in their house? It doesn't matter if the therapist initiated it, offered it. You're still a fool to allow it. People see therapists every day. You don't tell your therapist to come stay in your damn house. And if your therapist saying, well, I need to be in your house. I need to see what's going on. I need to see what's going on between you two. You need to run like hell.
Just wept and just thanked him and thanked him because it just all quick. So he says, but before all these things, nation rising its nation, they shall lay their hands on you. And I'm like, and prosecute you.
And at one point, she said she's happy to go to prison.
I didn't know she had children.
And ye shall be betrayed by both parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends. I'm like, Oh my gosh, that's exactly what's going on. And some of you shall be caused to be put to death, and you shall be hated by all men for my name's sake. And then he goes on to say, yeah. And I had read that before, but like I've never been in prison. But I just read that, and I just let, the Spirit was like, he just said, this is you. So then I read in Mark, that was in Luke, and I read in Mark the same kind of thing, you know, because the Gospels, they wrote similarly. So he said, now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, like the father will betray the son, and the children shall rise up against their parents and shall cause them to be put to death. That statement right there is what's going on with me. The children shall rise up and put their parents to death, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. I probably cried for an hour straight. Just everything clicked, and I said, I'm happy to go to prison. Because if you continue to read.
Who sits here and tells a person on the phone, don't know exactly who this person is, that you're happy to go to prison? Because what's going on with these children is what's been spoken in the Bible. Well, nobody believes that. Even in the worst day of these children possibly acting out or being wayward, it doesn't really matter because they're not your children. You didn't have a dog in the race, Jodi Hildebrand. And whoever told you you had a dog in the race, you were misled. And the same person that you were in cahoots with, she turned on you. And I'm sure you've heard it now with these new recordings released. Both of you are just fools. Utter damn fools. Pimping the Bible, using the Bible scriptures to your own advantage to make excuses for your rank-ass, foul-ass behavior. People do this all the time. Always running to the Bible to pimp a scripture. And Job said, and Mark said, and this person said. It's sickening. What I call pimping Jesus. Or pimping Allah too. We can go there. Just make excuses. Just dig up any old Bible scripture as an excuse for the behavior you're exacting out here in the street. These were not your children. You were not married to RUBI Franke. I do believe you two were having a sexual relationship, but nonetheless, these were not your kids. You had no business putting your damn hands on these kids. And I didn't even remember that she had children because you never heard anybody talk about her having any children. So if she has children, what type of mother was she? Couldn't have been a good one. She probably is a man hater. Mad at the world, mad because her relationship failed as a wife, husband. Maybe he didn't treat her well. I don't know. But the point is, she's a man hater. It's obvious. She's a man hater, man eater, like the song said. Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boy. She'll chew you up. She's a man eater, man hater, self-hater, self-loather. Hates everybody. And usually this comes from being abused. So I don't know if her husband abused her, she was abused as a child, but she hates the world. It's not just men. Because what do the children have to do with whatever happened to her in her life, her husband, whatever? What does it have to do with her going to elders of the church, repeating the people's business in counseling sessions? She's just a bitch. A mean, bitter, miserable bitch. And the fact that she sits here and talks on the phone with somebody and tell them she can't wait to get out and tell the story. Tell the story about what? Oh, yeah, Netflix, A&E, Lifetime, Hulu. Yeah, they'll pay you a little money to listen at your bullshit just to get them ratings. But it'll be all lies. You're nothing but another Casey Anthony, another Lori Vallow Daybell. You're all the same. You're all the same. These fucking producers know you are not going to ever tell the truth about what you fucking did. But it sells. Lies sell. Sensationalism sells. So you think you're getting ready to come out that prison? Hell to the no. Hell no.
the rest of the chapter, he's like, be grateful. If you're in this situation, be grateful because you're worth it. And you will be saved. And this is, yeah. Well, I have just been begging him, like, you've got to explain this to me. Like, I cannot logically figure out what's going on here. And that's it. That's what's going on in the spirit. I mean, when I feel the spirit, I have two physiological reactions. I get really like shaky, like I'm shivering.
She gets shaky when she hears the Holy Spirit. That's how you were in court. Was the Holy Spirit talking to you then? I don't think it was the Holy Spirit talking to you when you were in court, Jodi. I believe you were scared shitless because you knew you were going to get the bang, and they gave it to you. Wasn't no Holy Spirit in that courtroom. No Holy Spirits on that phone while you were talking. You look like a deer caught in headlights times 20 because you knew the bang was coming.
Or I feel heat, like I have fever under me. And I was like burning up. It felt like I was burning up. And I was just shaking with gratitude. Like, here's your answer. Here's what this is. And in 1 Peter chapter 4.
Oh my gosh. Are you serious?
Verses 12 and 19. I can't remember exactly how he says it, but he's like, when you have something happen to you and it just feels like it's random, it's not random. Like this is intentional. It's not just some crazy active events that's going on. This is like intentional. And that 1 Peter chapter 4 was another one of the footnotes to refer to, reinforce all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, this is just some crazy random event. That's purpose. And then I connected it to my blessing. My blessing I've been reading like several times a day. The blessing is pretty clear. But the first paragraph of it says, these are words directly to you from your Heavenly Father, and according to your faith and diligence, they'll either be a comfort to you or they won't be. So how much diligence and faith you want to put in. And then the next paragraph talks about, it says, you are a special spirit, chosen and reserved for these last days and sent forth to the earth in great clouds of glory to share the gospel and prepare the people for the return of the Savior. And it says, one of the reasons you were sent here is to share the gospel. The strongest message you will ever teach is the power of your example. And then he says, through the power of your example in the spoken word, he says, your tongue will be loosed and you will be able to teach the gospel in far and distant nations. And then he says, through the power of your example and the spoken word, you will be a great tool in the hand of the Lord in teaching the gospel to many. So this whole paragraph about an example, I'm like, well, what's a better example than to go to prison unjustly and then go teach the gospel? Like we plan on doing.
During sentencing, Franke called the abuse acts of love and even expressed sorrow for her family.
Meanwhile, Hildebrandt said during sentencing she genuinely loves the children and hopes they are able to heal. I'm Elizabeth Milner.
Hope they can heal, says Hildebrandt. Lori says, call her Lori. That should tell you something. Ruby says it was acts of love. Tying somebody up to where their skin starts to dissolve and starts to smell, and you keep covering it up and putting cayenne pepper and honey on the wounds, which was torture. You knew exactly what you were doing when you did that. When I first read that, I almost threw up. I said, oh, I see what they're doing. Yeah, I'm gonna put a little honey on it, but I'm also gonna put some cayenne pepper to burn it. And you want me to believe these people have remorse for what they did to those two children? Hell no. I'm going to stop right here because this live is over 2 hours plus. I didn't want you all to hear that cop talking about the wounds. We can talk about it another time. But the wounds smelled, obviously, he smelled them. And that lets you know that they probably had been that way for some time. The boy's ankles and wrists bound with duct tape and saran wrap. And the skin had dissolved off naturally when they were unwrapping the wounds to see the severity of the wounds. This is a cautionary tale of not knowing people and people using religion radically, jacked up in the mind. And the sad part of the story, not just what was done to the children, is the fact that these two people did not know each other at one point. That's what I want to drive home in this live stream, is that these two people did not know each other. They were not raised together. They're not sisters. They were not, high school mates. You're talking about two random people crossing paths and doing these devious acts to kids. This is deep. That's what's scary about people. It's when they get in cahoots with somebody else. It's one thing to go out here and exact a crime against one person, more people. But when they have a cohort, they got a road dog, this is scary as fuck. And this is why listening to the Lori Vallow case and the Chad Daybell case, it's just as sinister because they reached out to people and they you had Lori, you had Chad, you had the niece, that's 3. You had her brother, that's 4. I believe his wife was on board with the bullshit, that's 5 people. Now you imagine the cults you have heard who had more than 5, such as Jim Jones. These religious cults, churches, Koresh, so many more, because there's one I found, they came out of California and they ended up down in, I think it was Arkansas, an older woman and a younger man. You don't know people. And when you can get somebody to easily go along with doing wrong, hurting people, harming people, raping people, that's a dangerous mind. And the fact that you can easily talk somebody into going along with this type of behavior is scary as hell. And you see this all the time, especially in cases of abuse of children, how the woman meets a guy and then he's abusing her kids. And then next thing you know, she's going along with the abuse and she's covering up the abuse and she's covering up the death of her child. Why? How do you talk somebody into doing these things? I don't understand. You can't tell me you love somebody so much you are willing to go into the belly of the beast with them. And this is the flip side of this bullshit. Just like these two are talking shit, Lori, see, I'm gonna keep calling her Lori. Ruby flips on her. Oh yeah, I knew she was gonna do this and this, and she didn't want life in prison. They turn on you in the end. They turn on you in the end. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, sweetheart. That's what people don't seem to understand. All this collusion and binding kids, shaving hair, dousing them with this and that and water and starving them and making them stand in corners and making the boys stand out on a hot balcony to only turn on each other when the little boy ran away and the police came. So you see, there's no loyalty. There's no loyalty. And you can't make people understand this. You go down into the belly of the beast with covering up a murder, covering up abuse, neglect, fraud, whatever it is. One of you are going to turn on the other one when the shit hits the fan. So then you got to look back and say, well, what was it all for? You turn on them now because the police is involved. And that's what happened here in this case. Ruby sitting back talking to whoever on the phone like she's, Jesus Christ. Oh, well, I knew this, and yeah, I figured she'd say this, and she's still not taking responsibility even when she's sitting there talking on the phone about JODI pleading guilty. She's supposed to plead guilty, you idiot. She's supposed to plead guilty because she did it, just like you did. But you can tell in her voice, she's trying to put all the blame on Jodi. Like, oh, all this is her. I did this because of her. She brainwashed me. I now see the light. That's your defense. That's what your lawyer wants to tell the court. She was coerced. She didn't know any better. But the proof is in the pudding, Ruby Franke. You were already accused of abuse before you met Jodi Hildebrand. And that's the point. You and your husband, yes, Kevin, Franke, I'm talking to you. You all were abusing those kids before Jodi Hildebrand ever knew your damn name. That's the point. You met an evil person and you two linked up and you pushed Kevin out the way and he foolishly ran out, left, abandoned his children. He didn't give a fuck about his kids. And yes, he does not deserve any custody of those damn kids. Because you can honestly explain a man staying away from his children a whole damn year. That's what the court system is for. Take her to court. And he did not. The children are happy. Since this article I read from ABC News in this live stream, feel free to go back to the beginning of this live to get that said information. Both boy and girl are together in a foster home. Amen. Prayers for the two children, the youngest, the middle children, and the older children, because they have lost a lot in this debacle. They no longer have a mother that they can trust and rely on and utilize as a maternal figure, a role model. And the father, I don't know what the type of relationship these children will ever have with him, but to me it would still be grainy because he abandoned his children. And I don't know how you can logically explain that to your children. Why you left, why you didn't fight for me. And then the audacity to want to go to court and act like you want to be a parent now. Why should a judge give you custody? Because he shouldn't. Because you had an obligation to your children and you failed them. And there's no excuse for that. And Jodi Hildebrand has nothing to do with that. Because if you're going to blame Jodi, you're putting her in a position as if she was God and that she was running things and orchestrating, and Ruby had a mind of her own. That's the point. And you, sir, had a mind of your own. And you could have taken your wife to court to file for custody of those kids. See, everybody played a role, and in the end, everybody pointed fingers. Did you notice that? Everybody shifted blame and left the children out to fend for themselves. And the children may want to speak to the mother, may want to deal with Kevin, because children are resilient, and these people are all that they know. Children are more forgiving than adults. Have you noticed? The child will forgive a rank parent, still want to deal with them anyway, because they are children. I want to thank you all so much for joining me. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful weekend. I will try to come back on later tonight for live number 2 pertaining to Mr. DeHart. He has been accused of killing an officer and attempted murder of an officer in Blount County here in Tennessee. And the WBIR has released a video pertaining to a mark under his eye that he did not have when he first was arrested. So was Mr. DeHart abused while in custody? Some will probably say, well, who cares? Well, the point is, you're not supposed to be abusing detainees because it's up to the judicial system to render their fate. And if you're going to start beating up detainees, then you are issuing your own form of justice. And what is the purpose of having them arrested and them going to court, having a trial or giving a plea? We're going to discuss that later. Like, share, subscribe, Thank you all, new guests, viewers, new subs. Thank you so much. Go to my community page to take the post. And once again, prayers to the Strain Gilbert family. Mr. Riley Strain was found in a river, Nashville, Tennessee, 8 miles down the river. Positively identified. We will wait on an autopsy to give us the manner of death, cause of death. And as I said in that live stream yesterday, you have to be very careful in listening to he said, she said in a storyline, because we now know that he had on that black and tan shirt. So there was no homeless man with the shirt. There was no picking it up off a rail. If he did, it was not that shirt. You see, you don't know people. You don't know the people that immerse themselves in a storyline and what's the truth. And I still believe that everything started at that bar. Why did this young man go to that river? Googled the wrong address, fell in, pushed in, or did he jump in? Was he depressed, upset, mad at his friends because he was out alone? Because I keep trying to tell people, you don't know people. And when you're drinking alcohol, you can become depressed and you can get down, because it happens to many people when they drink. What is the truth to the death of Riley Strain? We will see. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and checks are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for following this network and listening to this content. We will talk again about this subject matter pertaining to RUBI and JODI. And prayers for any child who is currently being abused by their parent or caretaker. Sweetheart, if you can get to the nearest phone, please call 911. And anyone who knows of a child being abused, or elderly person, disabled person, or adult, call 911. Do not call DHS. Do not get on the DHS hotline or website. It's a waste of time. It takes too long. Call the police, because it gets done quicker, justice, if you call the police. Thank you for joining me, everybody. You've been listening to The Vault XL.